What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast. I am your host, Greg. You are listening to episode 198. I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler. It's been a really good week for Detroit Red Wings hockey, but how are you guys doing tonight?
I am super. You are right. It has been a great week for Red Wings hockey, and I'm happy that I've been actually able to watch these games. I missed the debacle for Buffalo, so I'm not upset about that. But I have been able to watch what is considered to be fantastic Red Wings hockey, one of their best starts in a very, very long time, which I think we're going to touch on here in a second. But no, I'm good. Other than that, jovial, happy. The weather's been great. Not too cold, not too hot.
Besides the one day where winds were 130 miles an hour.
Yeah, that too. I mean, no siding got blown off this time, so I'm good with it. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm doing good. The Wings are playing good, which we're going to talk about. I just got back from New Jersey, the armpit of the United States. Total shithole. But basically, let's just put it this way.
Shout out to all our listeners in New Jersey.
Let's just put it this way. Rutgers, the university, the parking lots are 5 fucking miles away. And they made a girl that actually was the head of the tailgate. She was in a walking boot. She walked 2 miles each way to the stadium because there was supposed to be shuttles to and from the stadium from the parking lot.
Was it uphill both ways in the snow?
It was not uphill in the snow, but I felt bad for her because, she was in a walking boot. Anyways, other than that, had a good weekend. Yeah, no, the Wings are playing good, and the weather has been weirdly warm. I was at a football game on Saturday, as you all probably saw, and wearing.
Oh, is that what you were talking about? That's crazy.
Wearing a short sleeve T-shirt, short sleeve jersey with nothing underneath. I'm like, holy crap, it's warm. It was like 74 degrees out.
I think the definition of a T-shirt is short sleeves. So we do have a lot to talk about.
They do have long sleeve T-shirts, though.
No, it's called baseball tees.
Those are a lie. That's a lie. It's not a long sleeve T-shirt. It's just a fabric. They're
I guess, right? So.
It's not a long sleeve T-shirt. It's a short sleeve long shirt.
Well, the Wings are off to a good start, so let's go there.
We do have a lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to start with the fact that the Detroit Red Wings are, since we recorded last and kind of got really sad and depressed and angry for an hour, the Red Wings are 3-0-0 with 3 really good wins. The games may not have been as good, but the wins are good against the Capitals, the Islanders, and the Rangers. 3 teams they don't really have much business beating. The Caps, though, were rather depleted. They're missing like 9 guys. Now, we're missing quite a few people, but the Caps are missing like 9 people. And there's some bigger names like Oshie's out. Is it Backstrom's out, or is it Kuznetsov? It's Backstrom.
Backstrom, Oshie, Wilson, Brown.
Yeah. John Carlson's out.
Yeah.
So they're missing like their entire top half of their team and their
still had Ovechkin.
They did, and Ovechkin did score. We said the only person we could allow to score against us as long as we win the game is Ovechkin, and that's fine.
And weird, he did that.
But the Red Wings through those 3 games, and why I say that those games themselves may not have been so good was because the Red Wings did not control the majority of the game in any of them. And the Washington game, their Corsi was a combined even strength Corsi of 43.2. In the Islanders game, 39.3. That's like miserable. And the Rangers game was 43.0. So we weren't controlling puck a majority of the time during the game, but we were still able to take advantage of the time we were controlling the puck, score goals, come back in that Rangers game and win in overtime. On just a beautiful no-look pass by David Perron he made that overtime his bitch, and he no-look pass right to Kubi in front of the net. So Kubi's hot. Larkin continues to stay hot. Him and Kubi have the same point totals right now. I think they have the same stat line as far as goals and assists go, and they're on pace each for like 103 points on the season, which is probably not going to happen. But the Red Wings, they took that Sabres demolishing where they were just absolutely embarrassed, turned it around. Philip Hronik shaves his beard off into what I'm going to call the Fu Manchu, the Hronik Fu Manchu. And
we've been hearing handlebars as well.
Handlebars. But in the 3 games that he's shaved off the beard portion of his mustache, we have 3 wins. And I mean, I'm going to take
I still think he sucked yesterday.
So there was another stat I saw where the pairing of Mata and Hronik are the 6th best defensive pairing in the league right now, as far as defense goes. In
the league, in terms of what?
In terms of not allowing goals when they're on the ice.
Can we talk about the turnovers?
He only has 4 on the season.
And that's total bullshit because I've counted way more than 4.
Giveaway there.
Yeah, but you're not the official NHL.
Exactly.
Tyler. I don't give a shit. I've watched a lot of hockey in my day, and I'm not saying
we need the buzzer. We need the buzzer.
How old are you again?
Look at, I'm 27,
and
I've been watching and playing hockey since I was 3 years old. So in terms,
you like buzz him during that, like when you're recording it. 97.1 when you guys start talking about back in my day.
Okay, I hate to sound like the old guy here because I know I'm not. But in terms of turning the puck over, I've seen way more than 4 times that he's turned the puck over this season. He turned the puck over 4 times in the fucking Buffalo game alone. He was miserable in that game. Sorry, rant over.
I'm saying since these past 3 games, he has looked good. Filip Hronik has looked good. Now like we had talked about, he needed a partner to help him with defense. And Olli Mata came in and he's locked down that role. He's been very good. He's elevated Filip Hronik, and Hronik seems to be doing good now. So I'll take it. Just keep shaving the beard, I guess.
I mean, when those two are on the ice together, per natural stat trick, they've got 7 goals for, 3 against. They're push and play hard, and Mata's point totals are showing that as well.
Yeah, I like Mata's game. I think he's been good. I'm not going to give Hronik that much credit. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he's kind of become the whipping boy of the defense core, whether it's fair or not. But Mata has played good, and I won't deny that the last couple games Hronik has come around, and hopefully he does continue to come around because I'm not rooting against any of the players on.
He's got
team.
7 assists in 12 games already.
I'm talking defensively.
Okay, well, that's what Mata's for.
Oh, okay. So they're the 14th best defensive pair in the league. So right there with 163 minutes and 11 games, their X goals percentage is 51.8. Their goals for is 5.8. Their goals against is 5.4. Their expected goals per 60 is 2.1, but their expected goals against per 60 is 1.99. That's tied with Mahura and Gudis in Florida. And that's 1 below Pedersen and Petrie in Pittsburgh.
Isn't that like a third D pair, though, on Pittsburgh?
It could be, but this is all about defense, expected goals per 60 minutes.
Here's a fun one for you. Their on-ice save percentage is 96.74.
Yeah, I mean, they are now the shutdown defensive pair, I guess. Now, I'll switch my, defensive scapegoat out to Robert Hagg. He has been absolutely miserable.
I agree with that too.
And I think the second Jake Wallman takes off that non-contact or no contact jersey, Hagg's out of the lineup because that's been not good. It's been absolutely brutal for big stretches.
Honestly even rather see Osterley in there.
I mean, Osterley is also not great, but
had a decent night the other night though.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and say Wallman will improve the lineup when he comes back. When Pysyk comes back, then they're just gonna move Gus Lindstrom out and give Pysyk Lindstrom's spot.
That's fine. I mean, that's not the worst thing to happen either. I mean, it's Lindstrom's been okay. I mean, he hasn't been awful, I don't think. But he hasn't been great either.
No, and that's kind of where you look at and I put out a tweet about it. If you look at January and where this team could be in January with what they've done these past 3 games, and we brought up the stat. So the Red Wings actually haven't been this good in a while. They're 7-3-2 right now, which is the best record through 12 games since 2010. And that
was a pretty good team.
And if you told me that was going to happen with Wallman out, Bertuzzi out, Vrana out, you had Michael Rasmussen miss a couple games. We had talked about the extensive injuries. We had talked about the suspension. You've got Vrana leaves for personal reasons. and you still have this kind. You found a way to win important games. And like I said, when January rolls around and you get a Bertuzzi back, and you might have a Verana back, you're going to have a Wallman back in. You could have a Pissick. You're going to have Robbie Fabry. What's this lineup going to look like, and how much damage are they going to do when you get guys like that back and you bump it up just another level? But on the flip side, could that potentially, getting those guys back, yeah, the power is there, but could it hurt the chemistry that's been building so far?
I don't necessarily think it's going to hurt chemistry, because we saw the way this team started with a full roster. Now, granted, it doesn't have Fabry and Wallman, but we saw it with everything else. Verano was off to a hot start again. Bert was looking like his old self. Like, I think bringing these guys in the fold, even though it's going to be midway through the year, it's not going to hurt anything. And if it does, then we'll deal with it. But I'd be very surprised with the way things have started and the attitude that they've taken already. Really, you could argue is what Lalone has helped instill in this team up to this point. Like, they'll hit the ground running, and they're obviously not going to force these guys back in. Verana is the wild card here we just don't know what's going to happen there. But we know that Bert's on a timeline. That's getting closer. Wallman's getting closer because he's been out there skating. It's just a matter of shedding that jersey, like you said. So
Fabry's been skating too.
I'm sorry?
Fabry's been skating too.
So, yeah, but I mean, you think about it, we're already a part of the way into November, and a couple of those guys were slated for right at the turn of the year. So we're probably about maybe a month out from Bert, and then the other two potentially sooner, but that's best case scenario. It's how quickly they can get back up to hockey speed and get their fit to them. And Bert, I wouldn't be too worried about unless they told him he can't skate, but it was upper body, so he should be fine there.
Yeah, and just a trip down memory lane, the last time the Wings, were off to that good start, they lost in the second round. We were just talking about this off camera. That was the year that they lost the first 3 games to San Jose, 1-3, and then lost in Game 7, 4-3 or 3-2. So
and they finished first in the Central that year with 104 points.
Yeah, not a big deal. Third in the West, too. That was a good team, and Franzen had 28 goals. But anyways, in terms of the injuries and everyone coming back, you've seen some injuries already in the NHL. I think Brad Marchand kind of comes to mind, where, you think they're out for a while, and all of a sudden.
And Bergeron. Weren't they
Bergeron, too. Yeah, both of them.
For a short time.
They're both were slated to be out until at least mid-November, and they came back mid-October. So it's certainly a possibility. The whole Verana thing, we don't know. He could be back in 2 weeks, or it could be 2 months, or we don't know. So that's the unfortunate part. We don't know when we're going to get Verana back. I do have a feeling you're going to get him back at some point this year. But again, you don't really know, so you can't really bank on it. So coaches have always said you're not there, not available, and not really thought about until you are available. So that's kind of the way you got to look at it. But in terms of the injuries and everyone coming back, I think once you have a guy like Robbie Fabry come back, you're gonna start to have some decision making too. Once Bertuzzi and Fabry and all these guys come back. We already kind of went into it on defense, but you can go into it on offense as well. What happens with Soderblom? What happens with a guy like Adam Ernie, who's played pretty good?
Honestly, the way Ernie's playing, he's picking off on what he had 2 years ago. So I don't see him. He's not going anywhere because he's bringing that extra bit of, I hate to use the word, but grit to the lineup. And he's out there throwing the body around. And he's actually doing as what you would expect him to do. Now he's got 7 points in 12 games. So maintaining that pace, good luck. But like he's solidified himself in the bottom 6. I mean, Soderblom is the easy one to be odd man out here. And I only say that because he's only got 2 points in 12 games and he can go back and forth without having to clear waivers.
He's looked good, I thought, though. Like,
he's looked good, but I think his important thing would be going to Grand Rapids to work on his defense. There have been defensive lapses and times where, I mean, you see him get beat, and that's normal. I mean, it's adjusting speed to the NHL level, and it's only been 12 games. But I think he's an easy, like you said, he's an easy one to move because he doesn't need waivers. Joe Valeno's an easy one to move because he doesn't need waivers, and he hasn't been as effective lately as he started. He got a pretty good start, had a pretty good middle, and then, I mean, it's kind of not, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been as noticeable. So those are the two that you can slide.
Yeah, easily. I think, and you look at the other veterans that they brought up, like Zarnik, Matt Luff, like they're doing what they have to do to help the team out given the situation. So
Matt Luff had a goal.
Right. That was a beauty. That was a NHL 23 style tip in right there. The Sherrod fired it, about 1-2 foot wide, just stuck it out there. The goalie was frozen. Like, what the hell just happened?
I will say one thing about Luff. Like, I know he's not the greatest hockey player in the world, but man, does that guy work hard. Every time.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Man.
It's true. I mean, especially if he's in the bottom six there, or I guess the bottom line there, or the fourth line, whatever you want to call it. He's one of those guys that he's not the greatest hockey player in the world, but he's going to go in the corner. He's going to finish his checks, and he's going to plumb away at trying to get the puck. And he's done a fantastic job of getting in on the forecheck. And you've never heard that term, huh?
Plumb away.
No, you've never heard the term of being a plumber back there. Well, one of those gritty forwards.
Is that a Boston thing? I feel like it's a Boston.
No, it's not. It's actually
I think he's making it up.
So, but anyways, he's a good player. I mean, he's good for what you need him for. And I mean, as soon as some of these guys get healthy, we'll go back to Grand Rapids. But he's definitely a depth piece.
So I think one thing I want to add to that, though, in terms of what we've seen from really the whole roster, is they are a hard team to play against.
Absolutely,
and it's every single line. And when you're talking about what Luff has done, Zarnik and a couple of these guys in the bottom pairings or bottom lines, like they're hard to play against. Now, is there times where you can tell that some of these guys are outmatched? Sure. But it's not for a lack of trying out there. And it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do as a whole and not just relying on those couple lines to get out there and try to do everything for them.
Yeah, because that's what we had talked about initially was you can't let Dylan Larkin do all the work all the time. You can't let Kubalik do all the work all the time, or else you end up in blowouts like you had against Buffalo. You end up in bad losses like you had against Boston. And these past 3 games, you're getting all your lines working in on stuff and contributing. And if they're not scoring, they're shutting people down. And that's what they have kind of depended on. And then also some luck. They've been playing kind of above their luck score recently, which is okay, but it's not sustainable. So Lalone knows that. He knows there are still things that need to be fixed. They were like 25% on the power play over the last 3 games. They were like 89% on the penalty kill. So their special teams was better, but you could still improve on the power play. The penalty kill, I'm not sure you can improve much more on unless you're trying to get back up to 100%. But their special teams could use a little bit of work in the power play department. So I'm not in about player injuries. You're getting a little bit more, not luck, but you're getting maybe another look at a guy with Philip Zadina, who's now out for what was said today or yesterday as months. He's going to be out. He's like month to month now.
Yeah. Broken bone.
Yeah. Well, it's he blocked the shot with his leg.
It's like upper ankle area.
Yeah.
Like it looked like it went right above where the skate, right below maybe where the padding is on where it wraps around the leg there.
Yeah. So he's probably got either it's a break or a fracture. So he's going to be out for a couple months. And we were saying, does this maybe give a shot to someone like Berggren, or do they just keep Luff and Zarnik in? It should. But the thing is if you got these other guys coming back, if you've got guys that are maybe Bertuzzi's a couple weeks away, and if he's a couple weeks away, do you call in a Berggren for 3 games or 4 games? I mean, I think you should too. I think Berggren should have been called in on the last injury, but he's doing very well in Grand Rapids. Some people are saying that his defensive game still needs a little help, but if he comes in and scores goals and is as defensively sound as Philip Zadina was, don't you think that's his spot at that point?
It could be. I mean, if you've got a guy that's had no points through 9 games, which was Zadina, and obviously not trying to completely shit on him while he's down, but he has not looked good.
Except for the game where he got injured, that he was having a very good game.
Yeah, he has had flashes of what we would expect out of him. Has it led to anything? Unfortunately, not. And really, I would say that the discourse had mostly stopped up until the point for him on when he got hurt, because he was getting opportunities with the best players on this team, and it wasn't happening. He was getting power play time. He was playing with Larkin, playing with Perron, Kopp, you name it. Puck wasn't going in the net. He wasn't getting it, helping getting it in the net. So him coming back from injury, will he be the odd man out again? Potentially, because you're going to have everybody else back. And if Johnny Burgers does come up, I know that people are trying to say that's not going to be the nickname, but I love that
it is the nickname
coming up. So
that
we're
is the
rolling with
nickname.
it. If he comes up and makes the impact that he's currently making in Grand Rapids, because he has not missed a beat coming off of last season, and he is shooting the puck really fucking well. And if he does that, Zadina's the odd man out. But I also say that in the sense of where else can Bergeron play? That's not just a depth guy. Meaning, if he's third line on this team right now with how things are going, that's no problem. Because that could whoever you're putting him with, that's actually going to be a decent line at this point.
You give him special teams too.
That's what I was going to say. Is he going to be slotted onto a power play unit? Because you would think that he would, and that would give them better depth on 2 power plays. So, yeah, we'll see.
I think what aggravates me is some people are like, well, he's doing well in Grand Rapids, keep him there. It's like, no, the goal isn't to do well in Grand Rapids. The goal is to do well enough in Grand Rapids so you get called up and you're part of the big team. That's what happens when you're drafted. That's the point of being drafted. That's the point of being a hockey player, is to get to the highest level. And if he's playing at a high level and there's a need on the team, especially, you could slot right into that Zadina role. And if he does well, then that's his spot to keep. I'm sorry, Zadina. Steve Yzerman didn't draft Philip Zadina. He has no allegiance to Philip Zadina.
Yeah, I agree. And we had said that this is Philip Zadina's make or break year, and breaking so far, because he hasn't literally made anything.
No
as
pun
far
intended.
As points. Yeah, as far as points go, there have been none made by Philip Zadina. So last couple players I wanted to touch on before we move on. We have actually a pretty massive mailbag tonight. But Andrew Kopp has seemed to have turned it around. He has found his game. He scored a goal. He has 5 assists and 6 points in 12 games. And by all intents and purposes, has looked good. Andrew Kopp has been good the past few games. And he, like I said, he probably just needed a little bit more time to warm up. Coming back from surgery, did not have any training camp. He didn't have any preseason. Took him a little while, but he's here. Lucas Raymond is absolutely on fire right now. He almost had a hat trick. He has 6 points in 12 games, 4 goals, 2 assists. He has looked really good, and Mo Sider seems to be back to himself.
If Luke grows the mustache along with the bottom part here, is he going to look more and more like me, or what?
People are going to think you're copying him at this point. Let's not kid ourselves here.
This is my style here, not his.
You're not the one making a lot of money that's on TV all the time. So I hate to break it to you, but they're going to think it's the other way around. Just saying. But no, Kopp has been fun because he scored 4 points over his last 4 games. And obviously he had 1 point in the Buffalo debacle, but he had 1 and 1 in Washington. Finally got that monkey off the back, scoring there. Had an assist against the Islanders. Didn't have anything against the Rangers, but that wasn't for a lack of trying, because I'm surprised that he didn't have a couple assists in that game. Felt like they just were peppering the net there, but they just couldn't find anything until kind of late, and that it paid off in the end. But he has been much more noticeable, in my opinion, in terms of, I think that his legs have finally gotten under him after missing that time. And he even said as much that it's been just taking him a bit to try to get back into the flow of things. And I think that was kind of the worry that we all had with him coming off the core injury that he did, because we saw the same thing with Larkin. We've talked through it multiple times over how it just takes a little bit, and he's got those games in now. And if he can keep the pace and just keep going with it, points are going to happen, and he's going to help make this team better. And it's already showing.
Yeah. And the thing is too, he was slow. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. He was really slow out of the gate in terms of speed, foot speed, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was taking him a little bit to get, the rhythm and everything like that, to get up to the speed of the game. I feel like it's gotten better. I don't think he's quite just there yet in terms of timing, but I think it's getting ready to get there in terms of, everything, putting everything together. We kind of talked about him being from Michigan and maybe it taking a little bit of an adjustment to become there. I mean, because he's played in Winnipeg and he's played in New York. So, I mean, that's not exactly anywhere close to Michigan. So, with people asking him for tickets and everything like that, it certainly is a little bit of an adjustment, even if it's not like, the biggest thing, plus the injury and everything else. Lucas Raymond has been out of this world. I mean, really, he's looked good. His foot speed, I thought, was a little slow out of the gate too. And he's gotten quicker. He's making a lot more smart decisions with the puck as well. And I think that helps that he's playing with Kubalik and Larkin, although I guess Suter moved up. Right?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of Suter on the other wing there.
I like Suter more in the middle on the third line, or I guess on the second line. But to me, it's one of those things where they got out of the gate slow and they're starting to hit the ground running, and that's a good thing, because I mean, that's how this winning streak continues. You continue to have these guys go, and then the other guys start picking up the slack as well. Joe Veleno, I've seen a lot from. Not a lot of production just yet, but I think he's been quick. I think he's been willing to lay the body when he needs to. Now I know he's not like a second line center or anything like that, but I mean, if he continues to play the way, like in terms of eye test, the way he's looked out there speed wise and skill wise, he's going to start putting the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, but he's out there to be a center, and he's not doing well on draws right now. He's at a 30% rate. I mean, he's got an uphill battle, I think, at this point, especially when Sundqvist comes back. Like, to me, yeah, you're probably going to end up sending a guy down. You're going to have to. But I think he'll end up being the odd man out in lieu of a Soderblom or somebody like that when Sonny comes back.
Do you think the reason that they haven't controlled the puck as much is just because of their lack of winning draws? I mean, other than Dylan Larkin, everyone else seems to be losing a lot of faceoffs.
Yeah, I mean, last game they actually were fantastic on the draw, it seemed like, as a season total, they're at 44%. I mean, you look at Kubalik, I'm not going to count him. Larkin's at a 52 rate. Let's see. Andrew Kopp is somehow only at 40% faceoffs. Raz is at 44. Suter's at a 43.9, so 44. I mean, the guys that you were relying on to take most of your draws, other than two of them, really aren't doing too hot. But I mean, it is still early, so that's going to change. But I mean, it does impact what it is that you've got going on if you're not winning that draw.
Especially on the power play. That's the biggest thing. It feels like they lose every face-off on the power play. Dylan Larkin included. I'm not going to pick on him because he's not the only one. But, I mean, he is power play one, center number one on the power play. And you can't lose face-offs, especially in a 2-1 game where you're down and you're trying to come back. You got to win face-offs, and you got to get set up in the zone. Otherwise, you're killing 20, 30, 15, 20 seconds.
Right now he's at a 56% rate on the power play. So I'd say he's not doing totally awful there.
Seems like the games that they're winning, he's doing that. And then the games that they're losing, not so much, like the Buffalo game and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Dylan Larkin's the one you're going to be relying on most for your face-off wins. Like you said, Kopp is generally a pretty good face-off guy. And his numbers are improving lately, but he's got to pump them up. So we actually, like I said, have a pretty big mailbag tonight, but I want to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor before we get to that. NFL Sundays are only getting better, and so are the incredible offers at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. Check out this. Right now, everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, and point totals. With payouts bigger than ever, DraftKings Sportsbook is my go-to when betting on the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code THPN, and place a $5 pregame moneyline bet to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code THPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And we're back, and it is time for a Grind Line podcast mailbag. I think this is the first major mailbag we have of the season because there is a lot going on.
This is where we need a nice little sound.
Of what? Like mail?
I don't know. You've got mail.
And I could do the mail time song from Blue's Clues.
I was just thinking that.
There's the mail, it never fails. We all know the song.
Makes you want to wag your tail.
When it comes, we want to mail. Yeah,
Tyler has no idea.
I was just singing it. What are you talking about?
You were muted then. Your mouth wasn't moving, so I don't believe you.
So the first question I want to get to, because I think it's imperative to what has gone on recently with the Red Wings. Ray on Facebook asked, how close are you to giving the net to Ville Husso? Granted, Ned did have a really good bounce back game against the Rangers, winning that in overtime. Husso had his second shutout of the season, and he has looked fantastic. So I give Ned, I think there's a small chance they go back to a rotation, a 1-to-1 rotation. But if Ned lets another one go by, I think it's Husso's net. I actually think it might be Husso's net until Ned has maybe a couple other really solid starts, and then they switch 1-2. But Husso has been very good so far this season.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that one at this point. I mean, they were talking about it on the broadcast the other night that Ned has kind of had the short straw in terms of having most of the away starts to this point. So it has been that much harder of a go. But I mean, I would think that based on you look at the stats alone and that speaks for itself. But Husso, you watch these games played, and I would say the Rangers game was probably the first one where Ned looked like himself in terms of playing the puck and just how he saw the puck. And what I meant by playing, like getting behind the net and being active outside of his net, just outside of just making saves. And that's what you hope for can keep moving, like carry on moving forward. So if that's the case, I mean, I'm happy with the 1A, 1B, but I think right now your one is Husso until they force a change, meaning the goalies.
And to give it some background stats on Husso has 7 games played. He's won 5, lost 1, has a 94-1 save percentage and a 186 goals against. That's insane. I think he's like the 4th best goalie in the league right now. And Ned has 5 games played, 2 wins, 2 losses. He has a save percentage of 88 and a goals against of 4.34. Now, like you said, he did look good against the Rangers. He came back, he won that game. But Husso has been absolutely lights out in 99% of his starts so far.
Yeah, I think Husso's the guy. I would argue that he should be the guy already going forward. I'm not saying that, he's going to play every single game. But, if there's a game on a Tuesday night and there's not another one until Thursday, he should play both of them right now. And if it goes to back-to-back, then obviously, God forbid a goalie play 2 games in a row. How dare they? But I mean, in this case scenario, it's kind of where we're at in hockey. The 1A, 1B situation is kind of what it's going to be. But in terms of Husso being the starter, I mean, like I said, if there's a game on Tuesday and not another one till Thursday or Friday, you got to have Husso playing both of those. And then if it goes to back-to-back, then I guess you switch off. You do the 1A, 1B thing.
Yeah, you ride your hot hand. That's all you do with goalies in the hot hand right now seems to be Husso. So on Twitter at MoSider Fanboy, if the Wings are in a solid playoff spot, whether that's first or second wild card or somehow third in the division by trade deadline, do you see Steve still shipping players out to gain more assets, a la Kubalik? Kubalik ain't going nowhere, man. Chicago punches themselves in the dick every time Kubalik scores a goal. It's phenomenal. The guy, like I said, he's up there with Larkin right now, tied for leading the team in points. He has one of the best shots I've seen in a long time. I think he just needed to get out of that hellhole. And I think you're shipping off a guy like Robbie Fabry before you're shipping off a Dominic Kubalik.
I don't think you're shipping anybody out. I really don't.
You have to. You don't have enough room for everyone. When everyone's healthy, someone's got to go.
You could just send Soderblom down and Veleno down.
But then you still have too many people because you're going to have Fabry come back. If you have Verana come back, if you have Bertuzzi come back, you still want to try to fit in Berggren. You can send down 2, but
well, I guess the other thing is too, there's still possibilities of injuries going forward.
Sure, there
Hopefully
are.
not, but I'm just saying realistically.
Yeah, I struggle with seeing a guy with term getting shipped out, but because there's still too much unknowns of what will actually happen with the salary cap. So Fabry to me would be a very difficult one, and his injury history is not going to help him at all. And he's going to have to sweeten that deal if he's trying to get Fabry going outbound to try to bring in. I mean, if you're going for assets, then maybe it's doable, but you're still going to have to eat salary. And then that's $2 million. If you're taking on 50%, you're still paying him $2 million a year for the next 2 more seasons after this. I don't see one like that happening. It'd have to be all or nothing, and that'd be a tough one to sell. I mean, I could see a Suter or maybe
What about a
Sundqvist,
Bertuzzi?
maybe even a Burt, because those are all expiring deals. I'm not going to. Larkin's got a full no trade, so don't even try to go there. But Burt could very well be one of those guys that gets shipped out. It's I don't know if they're in that wild card spot. They've got enough to raise some eyebrows and make something happen, but they also don't have enough to really wow someone potentially in a trade. So it's kind of a damn if you do, damn if you don't almost situation, maybe a double-edged sword where you don't necessarily have to trade. Would you like to trade? It would be good, but it's not going to happen unless there's going to be something very good for Yzerman, as we've already seen to this point. So
yeah, I think the days of making an Anthony Mantha trade or a Nick Jensen trade or something similar to that is over. I mean, I wouldn't rule it totally out. If the Wings go in the toilet, but as constructed right now, and they're in it right now. I mean. And, obviously things can certainly change, but they're certainly in it. And when you're in it, you don't make trades for the sake of making trades. You make trades for the sake of, improving your hockey club.
Yeah. And by in it, we mean second in the division currently and sixth in the league. The Red Wings are in it. And then I guess the opposite side of the coin, Matthew Schupert on Twitter at DC Hockey 97 asks, is it too early to think about adding pieces for a potential playoff push? Are players like Fabry and Sundqvist possible trading assets to gain more pieces for a run? Now, Yzerman did say recently that he's still focused on not trading away his draft picks. And again, that goes with what Lalone says, is this team is probably not a playoff team. They're still going to have some struggles, though they aren't showing it right now. And it's only been 3 games. You can look back a week and see the Sabres game. But I think it's still too early to add pieces for a push. I think if they make it with this roster, I think if they're doing well enough around the All-Star break or after the All-Star break, that they may not trade away as much as they might have thought they would. But I don't think they're in the position to add for a push, because I'm not sure that push would be valuable enough in the end if you're just a first round exit.
I think it depends on what you're going for. If it has to make sense. You're not just making a trade for a rental, but if you're making a trade for someone that improves your team not only this year but next year and going forward, then that's certainly a possibility. Maybe a Jacob Chikrin trade. I'm not saying that specifically, but something
Isn't he
like
injured
that.
Again?
Exactly. But I'm saying a young player that is under contract that can make your team better this year than what you already have. But you're not trading for a rental. You're not going out and trading for 3 or 4 rentals to make a quote unquote playoff push. This is not Ken Holland. But if there's something out there that can make the team better, that's not going to, hurt you in the long run, I don't see why Yzerman wouldn't at least look at it.
No, unless it's a hockey trade, meaning player swaps at this point, I don't think it's going to happen. You might see a 3rd or a 4th round pick go, but that might be even still pushing it, because this team is not where they need to be as a whole to make an impact in a long playoff run, or even really just sniff the playoffs. We're still TBD on that, how this season plays out. So I don't see them acquiring to make the team necessarily better. If it is, it's a rental from someone else still with an additional draft pick, and maybe they're giving them a player back.
Yep. So from Constrictor on Discord, Cider had 1 point through the first 7 games and 4 points through the last 5. Cop had 2 through the first 7 and 3 through the last 5. Raven had 2 in the first 7 and 4 in the last 5. Which player are you most excited to see get going? Which is the most important that they get going? So I'll answer first by saying most excited to see get going, I think, is Lucas Raymond. I think he is going to have a monster year where he puts up a lot of points and just keeps progressing. I'm not worried about Sider. I think the most important to get going was Kopp. And he seems to be going now because you got him to solidify that second center position. Again, not worried about Sider. Like you said, Sider is going now. Sider has not been bad. He has not been as good as he was last season, but he is getting there. He was last game. Last game, Sider was phenomenal. But Kopp, I think, is the one that is most important to get going because you really need him to hold down that second line, and he seems to be doing it now, at least in the past couple games.
Yeah, no, I think the big one that you need to have get going is Raymond, because you look at Kopp's history. He's really not a big scoring guy. He's more of the center, like the typical center that you would expect in terms of maybe two-way player. He's sound. He's going to do things the right way.
Are you considering getting going just scoring, though?
Well, I'm saying putting points on the board. So you look at, I mean, he's got a career high of 53 points. And last year, or I take that back. What was last year? 50. I can't do math. 35 plus 18, 53. They got to get 53 again. Oh, no, that is added. Yeah, 53. I'm sorry. So that's he's coming off a career high. Is he going to repeat that? I mean, that'd be the ideal situation. 6 through 12 right now. We'll see. But I mean, his point totals aren't anything to be like, holy hell, that's amazing. So the guy that you're hoping that's going to be scoring and making a lot of those plays is going to be Raymond. Now, Sider, if you have him putting points on, that's fantastic, because that means that your back end's producing the way that you would hope it is. And that right now it's pretty balanced back there, if you could argue. So I think the one, though, that's most excited to see get going is definitely Raymond, because if he's clicking, that means Larkin's clicking. Whoever else they're playing with is doing the same thing. And whether that's power play or even strength, that's a big deal.
All right. So most excited, I would say it's Sider for me in particular. I think Raymond is going to be one of those guys that's going to have a big year. I think the slow start was just, due to the start of the season. Some guys start out slow. He did this year, did not last year. So I guess that just happens. But I'm looking forward to Sider because he is super important in terms of what's going to happen this year, offensively and defensively. So I'm really looking forward to see where he can go from here. Most important, I'm gonna agree with you, Ryan. Andrew Kopp. I think that a second line center is someone we've been looking for a while. Is he the second line center going forward, like in the future? We don't know about that, but for the here and now, he's the second line center, and I'm excited to see him continue to get better and get through that injury, because he's still not, I wouldn't say 110%. I think he's still kind of working through some stuff, but when it gets going for him, I think it's going to be good, and it's important to have a second line center that's going. So.
From Lucas on Facebook, if a left D goes down with an injury, would it be smarter to give McIsaac a look and let Edvinsson develop more, or just go with Edvinsson? I am going to counter that by saying go with Albert Johansson. Albert Johansson has looked good in Grand Rapids. Albert Johansson is playing a very good defensive game in Grand Rapids. Now, Edvinsson was in the game against Texas, was the first star, had a couple points, played a dominant defensive game. But I think that Johansson has been more sound defensively for longer in Grand Rapids, where we had said it doesn't matter if Edvinsson stays in Grand Rapids all year. It's fine. He can develop down there. It's a more physical game in the AHL. You got guys beating people up to make a paycheck. So I think you get him in a situation like that where he needs to make moves faster. He has even less space, even less time before he gets nailed to the boards. McIsaac would be an okay fill-in, but I think if I'm going to play a guy on a bottom pair, and I would say give Johansson a shot and see what he's got for a couple games. Unless you're sure you can bring Edvinsson in and he can steal that spot and lock it up for the rest of the year, try out a Johansson.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any of those guys, to be honest, because they're all young. They all have a different aspect to them that is, you could argue, is pretty fantastic. But to me, I think it's just going to be a toss up of who's ready to go, other than the guys that we've talked about that were injured and or about to be back, if you will. So would I love to see Edvinsson? Yes. Do I think that I want to risk burning an ELC year? No. So hopefully I could see them doing kind of the yo-yo with some of these guys, but Johansson, I wouldn't be against. McIsaac would be fun to finally see up here just because of the injuries that he's had up to this point. He's finally healthy starting last year. He's staying that way, I believe, so far this year. So him just out of like, hey, let's see what you finally can do at the highest level, because there was so much behind him in terms of hype before he got to Grand Rapids. So I don't know. I wouldn't be against either of them. I think McIsaac I'd put first on the list just because of how long he's been around. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that because you've been here the longest, you should be there. So you're not going to be bad by giving any of these guys a shot.
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter. Like not to not answer the question. I think all three of them are fantastic choices. Edvinsson obviously is the most flashy one, where everyone's kind of clamoring for that. But I mean, you can't really go wrong with any of those guys. I think McIsaac is probably the oldest one of the group there. And, he deserves an opportunity for sure. He's gone through a lot of injuries. He was in junior, right? Correct.
Who's that?
McIsaac?
McIsaac, yeah.
When?
Like he was playing in juniors. He wasn't in college, correct?
No, he was in juniors. Yeah.
Okay,
and then he was in Finland for a year.
And then he played in the World Junior Team Canada, right? Yeah. So, he's had some injuries, so it would be nice to see him finally crack the NHL. That'd be cool for him. And it'd be interesting to see if he could, make a case for himself staying. But you can't go wrong with those three.
From Frozen Slayer on Twitter, with Burt and Fabry, possibly Verana coming back before Zadina returns, does he still have a chance at a roster spot? What do you think the chances are that we get a peek at Berggren while Zadina's injured? We kind of already answered this. I don't think... I honestly, Fabry's easy enough to push Zadina out of the lineup when he comes back. You saw Zadina sit the first couple games of the season anyways, simply because there was no room. And when we have a fully healthy lineup, again, with the way he's playing, now not with the way he's producing, which is to say he's not, you got to give the spot to someone else you think is going to produce, whether that's Berggren, definitely Fabry, or a Burt. Maybe Verana. The lineup is going to be too packed. So that's why I had said maybe you looking toward the trade deadline, maybe you find a right shot defenseman in a similar situation that Zadina is in on another team and try to do a 1-for-1 hockey kind of trade there. You're not going to get many like picks for Zadina. You're going to have to do a trade that makes a player for player trade that makes sense, basically. And that's where I land on that. But he has minimal chances, I think, left to show what he can do, because we had definitely thought that with the new coach, okay, maybe he can get going. He hasn't got going. Maybe with more opportunity with higher quality line mates, he could get going, and he hasn't gotten going. So he's got time to do it, but the sand is running out of the hourglass.
Yeah, you've got guys like Adam Ernie doing more with less. So I think right there tells you a lot of where Zadina's at. And with Fabry coming back, he's there to come in and produce offense. And we know that that's going to happen because when he's on the ice, the team is arguably better. Now, you could argue how he is defensively, where you could say maybe Zadina is a little bit better in that sense. But at the same time, you just, maybe we'll see. So I think easily makes him odd man out.
Yeah, I think he's the odd man out. I'll agree with you guys. I haven't seen enough from him to warrant him a roster spot, really. I mean, when Fabry comes back, if Zadina, obviously Zadina is not going to be healthy. So, but once Fabry comes back, I mean, that's his spot to take. So, I mean, he can go out there and take it, or Berggren can come up and take it. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that hard to take that spot from Zadina.
It's not Fabry's to take, it's his to lose.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it as well. I mean, there hasn't been enough offense produced. And yeah, I mean, you can be a good defensive forward, but that's not what he was drafted to do. He was drafted to put the puck in the back of the net. He was drafted to be a quote unquote Nikita Kucherov-esque kind of player. And he has not done that whatsoever. So, he's the odd man out at this point.
From @NickCesac on Twitter, and this we're going to talk about the top of the lineup now. Do you think Kubalik stays in the top 6 when Verana, if he comes back, and Burt come back into the lineup? I think Kubalik has earned those top 6 minutes. He has made 100% out of every chance he has been given. He is, I'm going to say, one of the top players on the team right now. And that is, I'm going to give him top 6. He's going to get top 6 for until he slows down and proves that he doesn't need it anymore or doesn't deserve it anymore. But Kubalik's going to get top 6 even when those guys come back.
I'm going to agree with you, but I'm also going to tell you to go to find Twitter and look up the goal that McDavid just had, because he just walked the Capitals defense on a 4-on-4 situation and scored another highlight reel goal. It's not even fair. But anyways, no, I would have to agree. I think Kubalik's earned his way into the top 6. Now, Burt comes back. I think he's already on the top line. If he's on your second line, I'd be surprised. But there's no questioning what Larkin, Raymond, and Bertuzzi can bring to this team when they're all healthy together. So I think that solidifies you with Kubalik on the second line. Now, with Verana coming back, when or if that may be, I don't think you run into much issue by putting him on your third line, because you can really set him free against inferior competition, but you're also still going to have him likely lined up with decent players on either wing. So you can't necessarily be mad that if he's on the wing of Rasmussen and maybe Soderblom or Sundqvist, if he's back and healthy, Braun, even depending on where they decide to put him, if they're dropping him to the third line or something like that. So the odds are good of wherever Verana's at, he's going to score goals, and it's not going to eliminate him from getting back on the top power play unit potentially either, which really, I think you could take that either way, because I think he was kind of back and forth before he got out of there. So yeah, you're flexible, and I think that's a great spot to be in. And so we'll see.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as I would like to say he's going to stay there, I mean, if the production continues, then I don't see why he couldn't stay there. Tomas Holmstrom probably wasn't a first line winger, but he played there a lot of the times because he was producing, right? Most of the time, staying in front of the net and putting the puck in the back of the net, tipping. So, I mean, maybe Kubalik's not a first line winger, but if he's going to produce and going to have the chemistry with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond, then I don't see why he couldn't stay there. Is it likely? I mean, if you look at his career, probably not. But I mean, again, things do happen and players do continue to get better. So I don't see why not. But at the same time, it's a good problem to have. Like, I'll agree with you, Ryan.
From Pete on Discord, if we still had Keith Petruzzelli and signed him to an entry-level contract a few days ago, where would he sit on our depth chart? For those wondering where this question came from, the Toronto Maple Leafs had to emergency sign Keith Petruzzelli because they have another goalie injury and don't have any money. So they can't sign a goalie. So Keith Petruzzelli is a Maple Leaf for better or for worse. I would say that right now, Keith Petruzzelli would probably be, I think if you had him, he'd probably be in Toledo right now. Probably. I don't think he's beating out Bratstrom, and I don't think he's beating out Kosa in for a Grand Rapids position. So he's probably.
I think he's part of the merry-go-round of everyone going back and forth, because they'll probably have him in Toledo most likely with Kosa, then kind of splitting duties down there almost, and then you've got Bratstrom as the yo-yo, and those guys would be going back and forth. I think it'd be an in-between, if anything, but that'd be the best case scenario for those guys. I think that was the scenario that we were hoping for through the season, but alas, Petruzzelli decided to leave. So, or Yzerman let him go. Either way, that happened.
I was just going to say, if you had Kosa and Petruzzelli and the two heights combined, you'd probably have the tallest goalie tandem in fucking hockey history. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you guys. I think he would be kind of, up and down between the AHL and the ECHL, and maybe he'd be the guy in the ECHL. It didn't seem like, I mean, he's not much better than all the guys that we have now. And, he's still young as well. Although, he played 4 years at Quinnipiac, right? Or was it 3?
He played several years in college.
Right. So he's a little bit older than those guys. So I guess that's the one advantage or maybe potentially disadvantage he would have. But
So we have another one from Discord. We're going to run through some of these pretty quickly because we're running out of time tonight. Anyone taking the under on points this season at 84.5?
I think we were all kind of around 85 and 85, 90. So I would say no.
no, definitely not.
Cheesebag, Larkin and Kubi are projected at 102.5 points for the season. Do they reach it? How many people in the league will? Any surprises as to who will and won't? I don't think they do. I think if anyone gets close, it's Larkin.
Wait, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Larkin and Kubi are on pace for 102. Do they reach it?
Ooh, no.
And I think if anyone gets close, it's going to be Larkin. For those that do reach it in the league, you're looking at your McDavids, your Dreisaitl's, your Kucherovs. Erik Karlsson right now has 19 points in 14 games, which is a fucking shocker, right? Like back from the dead, Erik Karlsson. McKinnon will probably get there. Pasternak will probably get there. Jason Robertson has a chance. A surprise, Martin Necas is playing out of his fucking mind right now. But I think that Larkin, will have the closest shot. And I think if Raymond kicks it up, he might be able to go that way. But when guys come back and start getting healthy, if you think Kubi's going to be bumped down the lineup, then there's going to be less minutes and less opportunity to score. So I think Larkin will, if anyone gets to that 102 mark, I still think Larkin will probably get in the high 80s to low 90s, but we'll see what happens.
In my opinion, you need Larkin at that plus point per game pace. We've been talking about this ad nauseum. That puts him into a top 15 scoring center in this league. And it I hate saying it, but it justifies his existence as a 1C in the NHL. And that is what you're going to need because the defense is there and he can do all the intangibles in terms of that when he doesn't have the puck. But if he's helping put the puck in the net and also scoring goals when it matters most, that is what you need the most. If he's pushing 85 plus points, you've got your top 15 guy, arguably top 10 center in all of hockey. Kubi is just, you hope he hits 30, maybe pushing 40 goals. If he gets to 60 points, I'm great with it.
From Alan on Facebook, by the end of November, if we have 26 to 30 points by 22 games, is that a good measuring stick for later on to put on repeat if we can consider 100 points made wild card last year? Or is it too much parity these days, a bad thing for those hopes? I think if you've got 30 points by 22 games, that's a decent measuring stick, but we all saw what happened last season where we flew off into the deep end, off a cliff into the Grand Canyon after the All-Star break. And the car exploded. It's was Thelma and Louise or Bonnie and Clyde that just fly off and explode into the sunset. It could happen again, guys. It could. Do I think it's going to happen this year with new coaching and new systems and better players? No.
Through how many games again? 30?
They said 22. If we have 26 to 30 points by 22 games in, can we maybe look at that 100-point mark as a wild card spot? Because it was 100. I think it was 100 points last year. Washington in the final wild card spot.
No, but shouldn't it be less this year?
It depends on how everyone else plays.
You could argue that it's going to be that way for how some of the top teams are from last year are going, but that's going to be a tough hill for some of them to climb. But you look at their 22 games last year, they were 10-9-3. Detroit was. So there's 23 points that they had. So I think that your measuring stick should probably be a little bit higher. If you're pushing 13 to 15 wins, then I definitely say you're in a good spot. I don't know. State the question one more time so I make sure I'm hearing it right.
If we have 26 to 30 points by 22 games, do you think they can just repeat that going forward to the end of the season to make a wild card spot?
Yeah, if they're pushing 30, I think yes, they're going to have to. If they don't, I shouldn't say they have to, but to be at a proper pace and to try to compete with these teams, they're going to absolutely have to keep that pace. But again, depends on what injuries do, but we've seen how they've done with that to this point already. So if they're pushing 30 points, so there's the 15 wins right there, as just mentioned, not counting any potential OT losses in there, then you're in a damn good spot.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the biggest thing to look at as well is are they in it at American Thanksgiving? I know a lot of people are like, oh, American Thanksgiving. That's like the measuring stick. I think it's like 93% of the teams that are in the playoffs at American Thanksgiving make the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think there was only 1 or 2 teams last year that didn't. So that is the measuring stick. That's where you want to be. You want to be in the playoff picture at American Thanksgiving. Most of the teams that are make the playoffs, and most of the teams that aren't don't make the playoffs. So I agree. I mean, they have to keep up that pace of exactly what you said. It's kind of one of those situations where 102 could be enough. But that 100-point mark is probably where
92 could be enough.
92 could be enough. It really depends on what the other teams do. I mean, Tampa Bay is off to a pretty good start. Toronto's up, but then there's a lot of teams that haven't gotten off to a good start, like the New York Rangers, that probably are going to be a playoff team still too. So that's the other thing you have to look at. And is a team like New Jersey going to fall back? They're 9-3-0. Is Buffalo going to fall back? I know Buffalo's played some good hockey, but I mean, are they as good as they played? So that's the real question.
From Constrictor on Discord, the Wings are off to the best record through 12 games since 2010. What is another thing from 2010 that you miss?
Nick Lidstrom.
Good emo music. Tyler doesn't remember 2010.
Oh, fuck off. Of course I remember 2010.
Tyler was in diapers in 2010. He doesn't
No,
remember.
I was not. I was not in diapers in 2010. And Ryan, I'll just kind of say I agree with the Lidstrom one, but I'm going to say Pavel Datsyuk. I just miss watching that guy play, night in, night out. The most creative player I've ever seen. And, when I have kids, I'm going to show them the videos of Pavel Datsyuk because he was unbelievable.
I mean, just for reference on Lidstrom, he still had a 62-point season that year at age 40. So
I'm still going to say good emo music. From the Clankster on Discord, what are the odds that the Wings have 3 to 5 30-goal scorers this season? Kubi could do it, guys. He could do it again, have his first 30-goal season since his rookie season. Larkin, I think you can almost count on him to do it. The way Raymond's picked it back up, he could do it. That's 3. Let's see how Bert does when he comes back from injury. I mean, I think odds are really good. We have at least 3 30-goal scorers this season.
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair. I mean, if Raymond starts going on a tear and really picks things up, I could see him starting to actually push for that this season. I think Larkin is your guarantee. Kubi you could almost write him in. David Perron might be a dark horse for it, depending on how he keeps going, because his shot, especially on the power play, has been lightning. Bert would be the only other guy I would say that could potentially go for it, but he's going to have to push it well over a point per game pace to make that a reality, which isn't out of, the realm of possibility, but we'll see how he is coming back with a hand injury or wrist injury, whatever it is that he has. So 3, I think, is safe. Anything more, I would bet you could bet money on and probably potentially win.
Yeah, I think it's more than 3. I think it's probably closer to 4, maybe 5. It's possible.
Tyler, if it's more than 3, it has to be 4. It can't be closer. You can't have 3.5 30-goal scorers.
Okay, so 4, man. Maybe 5. That's
who?
Larkin, Bertuzzi, potentially. Raymond is 1, and then Kubalik. That's 4.
All right, Bertuzzi's got a lot of making up to do.
He does, but he seems to be producing when he is in there. So, I mean, it does, obviously, he's got to get going, and he does have some time still until he comes back. But I do see at least 3, maybe 4. Okay?
I'm going safe with 3.
I'll walk it back a little bit.
All right, we have a couple more I'm going to answer really quickly before we get to a couple fun ones. Verana's status, we don't know. Will Berggren finally get called? We talked about it a little earlier. I think there's a good shot depending on the recovery times of a couple guys. And now that we know that Zadina is going to be out for a few months, is Bertuzzi on track to return on time? As far as we know, yes. We haven't really had any updates on Bertuzzi's injury status. We've actually had more updates on Wallman, Pissick, and Robbie Fabry than we haven't really heard anything on Bertuzzi. So we've got Chris, who at Fopac Jack on Twitter asked why so many injuries. My only answer was it be like that sometimes. It's better, I guess, to get them out of the way at the beginning of the season than towards the end when you're trying to play down the stretch. and win while you've got those injuries. And then Maddie asks at DeTrusty on Twitter, who's your favorite 313 host? Maddie recently gave me French fries and a hug at the last game. So Maddie's got more points right now out of the 313 crew.
I got hugs from both, but I didn't get any French fries. So I'd say it's a dead tie between her and Jake. I haven't met the other.
I agree. It's a tie.
You got a tie? Okay. I'm playing the fifth on who would be the favorite. I don't think that's. If I get French fries, though, that would definitely push someone across the line.
Absolutely.
And they're those LCA like beer batter French fries. Oh, they're so
okay. Yeah, that's an easy win. That's not even fair.
All right. Well, that ends our gigantic mailbag of the week. I want to get your guys' final thoughts before we sign off, and we're going to start tonight with Ryan.
Final thoughts for me is it was a good week. I mean, hopefully we can. I shouldn't say hopefully. The likelihood of us having these conversations some more is good, and I like that because you look at last year. I just mentioned it through 22 games. We were 10-9-3 is what it was. I mean, we're already almost to that 10 win point in 10 less games. So
happy podcast, better than sad podcast.
It is refreshing to be able to talk about these things and see a goal like we had with the two newcomers in Perron and Kubalik, just shitting on people, and it's fantastic. So as long as we've got guys like Larkin staying healthy, that to me, that matters more than anyone else on this team, whether or not they're hurt, because we've seen what guys coming in and helping this roster out have done to this point, and they're filling roles and they're doing their jobs, and that's what's important. But you've got no one that can replace what Dylan Larkin brings to this roster right now. So good vibes, good juju across the board there. It's fun hockey right now, minus Buffalo, but it's going to happen sometimes. So it's exciting to see what Lalone has already brought to this team, and the mindset you can obviously tell has shifted in what they're doing. And I hope it's the start of something good. It's just, I don't want to get too excited. There's a lot of hockey left, but it's a promising start. So RD Ryan 33.
Yeah, the start has been good. It certainly is promising. And, we've been doing this podcast a while, and we haven't had one winning team yet. So, we would look.
Don't let Rowan hear that.
What?
Don't let Rowan hear that and jump on it.
Well, we haven't had one winning team yet. And, that's not to our fault. We started this in the middle of a gigantic rebuild. I haven't talked winning Red Wings hockey since I started this way back in the Winged Octopus days. So it feels nice to be able to talk some positivity and talk about the Wings in a positive way, as opposed to in a tanking / not tanking, but you know what I mean, a middling and kind of sitting towards the end of the NHL. Now we're closer to the top, which is certainly a good thing, and hopefully that keeps up. Looking forward, I mean, you have that the West trip early on in the season. You have Anaheim, San Jose, and LA coming up here soon. So you'll know a lot more about this team after this week. I think you have Montreal, the Rangers, and then you go out west. So looking forward to that. But you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Yeah, like Tyler said, we have the terrible Montreal Canadiens up on the 8th. We have a rematch against the Rangers on the 10th. They are going to be rather angry. And then we have the LA Kings on the 12th. So no more back-to-backs for a while. I actually don't think we have any until the December 3rd and 4th against Vegas and Columbus. That one's going to be hell. But we've got some solid matchups coming up. And I mean, if we can win 2 of the next 3, I mean, it's a good kind of line to be on. But you can follow me or you can follow the podcast online at Grindline Pod. You can follow me at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Hockey Podcast Network at HockeyPodNet. We like to thank them for sharing us among the hockey podcast sphere of people. We'll give a shout out to Vintage Detroit, the only place you should get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on. If you use a promo code GRINDLINE on Howie's Hockey Tape, you will get 10% off your order. If you use that same promo code on Bring Hockey Back, you will get 12% off your order. You can also check out our merch on redbubble.com by searching the Grind Line. There are going to be a lot of sales on Redbubble coming up because it is Christmas time. So they are going to be getting their sales in for the holidays. So make sure you check there frequently. I will also post on Twitter generally when there are sales going on with a couple design examples. But go over there and search us out, and go check out our YouTube channel, sub to us there, interact with us on there. I've also started interacting more with people on HF boards. So if you are on the hockey boards, you can check us out there as well. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.